Hello, hello. Welcome back to Mistress of the Damned. I am your Mistress Katrina. How are you doing today? If you are new here, this is where I am reading through my enormous library of books, operating under the insane belief that all knowledge is worth having and all speech should be protected, especially knowledge you disagree with and speech that you hate. There's a difference between hate speech and speech that you hate. Sorry, kids. So if these are things you agree with, then you too are damned, and I am your mistress. Welcome to hell. I read through my books, I review the book, I give you a synopsis. So if you like books, not sure what to read next, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, share the video, let me know what you think in the comments. This week's book is Brave by Rose McGowan. This one hit my radar after watching her take down hypocrites all over Twitter. I mean, I knew, of course, who Rose McGowan was. I was a young 20-something when Charmed was big, and I watched Grindhouse when it came out on DVD. Not in the theater, because my husband despises Quentin Tarantino. But I have seen it, and I knew who she was. But as you may have guessed, books are my preferred medium. So after watching Ms. McGowan on Twitter and finding out she wrote a book, I immediately bought a copy and had it join my permanent collection. So this book is her autobiography / horror story. And I'm not sure why I'm doing so many horror stories this month. I thought I had that slated firmly for August and September, but apparently I'm just going straight through to summer, but whatever. Rose was born in a cult in Italy, and I mean like a literal cult. You may have heard of the Children of God, which later evolved to call itself the Family. Well, she was born among them. And so she grew up knowing what a cult was. She somehow seemed surprised that she fell into the cult of Hollywood as an adult. And I get that it's hard to know when these things are happening to you that that's what's happening to you. But realistically, you gravitate towards what you know, even if you know it's bad for you. I mean, how else do you explain repetition in bad relationships? It takes a conscious act of will to recognize a pattern and break it. And I certainly dated a string of not awesome boyfriends before I specifically chose better for myself. And I'm sure that I am not alone in that. I am sure that there are many men and women who can agree with that once you recognize the pattern and choose to break it, life gets infinitely better. Anyways, it's a pattern that repeats herself, not just her own experiences, but experiences that she watched her mother go through, and it's there's something psychologically cliche about it. But anyways, after a dramatic escape, boy, that sounds awful, but it's true, right? Women who watch their mothers grow up in abusive relationships tend to fall into abusive relationships themselves later, because that's what they see and that's what they know. And so it definitely has an impact on your mind when you're a young kid growing up. Watching your parents tear each other apart can set some pretty gnarly patterns for your future life. Anyways, after a dramatic escape from the family in Italy with her father, stepmother, and siblings, McGowan bounced around between Colorado and Oregon, between her mother and her father's house. Like I said, Rose recounts some pretty horrifying incidents at her mother's house with a string of men her mother dated, none of whom were nice people. And then she repeated that pattern herself later in life, dating not nice men who were abusive to her. I think the only one she had anything nice to say anything about was Marilyn Manson. She had good things to say about him. So, isn't that a fun twist, right? Everybody like, ooh, Marilyn Manson must be horrifying. Well, apparently he was the only decent one. Anyways, eventually, after spending some horrifying time as a child, she ended up in Hollywood, where she emancipated herself. She applied for emancipation, was granted it, and basically did what she could to live in Hollywood. Near as I can tell, she definitely hated the Hollywood lifestyle. I mean, how not? She recounts in horrifying detail her rape by Harvey Weinstein, who she calls the monster in the book, appropriately enough. And she spends a significant portion of the book calling out Hollywood for depravity that is endemic in the system. And the depravity is truly sickening. I mean, you know from previous videos that I'm a complete crier. I'm a total wimp. I cry about everything. I cry if it makes me happy. I cry if it makes me sad. I cry if it horrifies me. And I cried several times while reading this book because it was so horrifying. Because it is sad. It's sad how much abuse she suffered. And I don't think that Rose wants anybody's pity. Because she got herself out of it. And that's a message she wanted to pass on. That you can get out of horrifying relationships. And she's not saying it's easy. Nowhere in there did she say, hey, I did it, you can do it too. Although that's very much a message you get out of the book. She doesn't say, just leave. Because it's never that easy, right? Women who haven't been abused, men who haven't been abused, don't understand why somebody who has been abused would stay in a bad relationship and continue to be abused. And it's because it's not that easy to just pack up and walk away. There's a lot of life that can hold you there, and abusers rarely just walk up and start walloping you one day. They'll start by breaking you down mentally so you don't think you deserve any better. And then they start with the abuse. I'm like conflating things that I know from my own life experience, although I've never actually been abused in that. I've been mentally abused. I've been in mentally abusive relationships, but never in physically abusive ones. So she wants to raise awareness of the sickness that infects the cult of Hollywood. And since media controls the message from Hollywood to the rest of the planet. And she's pretty candid about the multiple assaults that she experienced, and about various romances she experienced, the good and the bad, her relationship with her family, her opinions about media, Hollywood, and what information we are being sold by Hollywood, which I agree with. We don't pay nearly enough attention to the messages being peddled by Hollywood. Where she started to lose me, though, was where Rose starts kind of brushing everything off as being the fault of the patriarchy. I get that Rose was badly treated. Badly mistreated. Not just badly treated, badly mistreated. But I disagree with painting anything with a very broad brush. I think that's dangerous. Scapegoating half the planet's population is problematic. The patriarchy brought us things like the Sistine Chapel, Notre Dame Cathedral, the Declaration of Independence, the Eiffel Tower. Civilization was built by the patriarchy. I don't think we should be throwing out the baby with the proverbial bathwater. That Rose was mistreated is horrifying. That Hollywood is rotten to the core and corrupting everything it comes in contact with is, I mean, to me at least, absolutely indisputable. I don't watch TV anymore. I don't watch movies. God, I don't even remember the last new release I watched. I think Hollywood's so full of shit, I don't bother. When I watch TV, it's usually South Park reruns because hey, I'm a libertarian. It speaks to me. Taking Hollywood as a microcosm that is a patriarchy in the dictionary definition of the word is something I can get behind. The dictionary defines it as a system of society in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. This checks out. This passes the bullshit meter to me. If it didn't, media wouldn't make such a big deal about it when women do something extraordinary like direct a box office smash, because it would be completely normal. But it's not normal because Hollywood is a patriarchal microcosm. So that checks out. I would agree that in Hollywood, men run things, and this contributes to the rot. But I don't believe that extends as far out to the mainstream America and the rest of the world as Rose believes. Strong men protect and build. They don't abuse. Weak men abuse, right? As Jordan Peterson says, if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. Weak men built Hollywood. They built it as their own personal playground because they knew they could not actually compete in the real world where strong women would have the ability to reject them. Hollywood is the construct of weak men, not the mythical patriarchy, that boogeyman of modern day feminists. I am a feminist. I'm a classical feminist. I believe in equality, right? Equality. Big difference. Anyways, I mean, overall, I guess I'm just mixed on this book. I think that Rose's story is important. I think it's important for girls with Hollywood dreams to be aware of the snake pit that they are walking into. And I admire Rose for fighting her way out of that snake pit. It takes a great deal of strength to survive what she did. But I can't blame half the population for crimes they did not commit by an accident of birth. No one chooses to be born a boy or a girl. No one chooses to be born black, white, or brown. Accidents of birth do not automatically garner you a guilty sentence for crimes you did not commit just because you happen to be born X. And that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my videos. Remember that all knowledge is worth having, and I'll see you next week. Bye.